All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, on this lesson, we're going to be looking at several things at once. We're going to be looking at the Constitution, the preamble, political parties, and special interest groups. Now, here's the thing. With the political parties and the special interest group, we're not going to go too much in depth. We're actually going to save that for another lesson. I just want to give you a some background knowledge so that way you guys have it there. And so when we do talk about it, you might be able to bring at least some of the stuff up that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the warm up. My bad, I forgot to mention this part. I forgot to do this for the other video as well. The objective today, we're going to analyze what and why a constitution are created. We're going to critique the importance and effectiveness of political parties, and we're going to develop a logical argument on whether our country would be better off without political parties. Okay, so now we're going to go to the warm up. So here we go. Um, there's a picture, as you see right there. The first question asks you, what is going on? Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. Really look at the shirts. That'll tell you what's going on in this picture. The second question asks you, do you think political parties are overall a good thing or a bad thing? Now, in class, some students were telling me that they go, I don't know. I have no idea. And after talking to them, I've come to realize that some of you guys do not watch the news. Some of you guys don't know what's going on, and anything that comes up political on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, some of you guys just sweep by it. You don't really pay attention. You don't listen to what's going on, um, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because, again, too much is kind of like overwhelming and it's kind of like it does get irritating. But at the same time, you do need to know what's going on in our country, what's happening between like the COVID, what's happening with minimum wage arguments, what's happening with the, talk about another lockdown, possible another stimulus package, all that kind of stuff. You do need to know what's going on. So it is kind of important that you guys do listen to once in a while to what's happening in our country and in our world. Okay. So if you have like no idea who the Democrats and Republicans are and what they're doing, stuff like that, this question might be a little bit difficult for you to answer. And if that's the case, explain that to me. Okay. But if you already know, you have an idea, you've been paying attention, that second question you should have no problem answering it. Okay. So go ahead, answer those two questions in the warm up, but we're moving on in three, two, one. So question number three on the worksheet says, what are the three main purposes of a constitution? Well, they're right there on top. The first one says it sets out ideals that the people believe and share. This is the beliefs that we, the people in a country, believe in. And in this country, we believe that like everyone should be free. There should be no one in slavery or in bondage whatsoever. So that's in our Constitution, where we basically say we don't believe in slavery. We believe that it's wrong and it should never happen. And it will never happen in our country or the territories we own. Okay. The second one says establishes the basic structure of the government and defines its duties and powers. Like I've told people in class, this one is basically like the first part establishes the basic structure of the government. It doesn't go into much detail, like step for step, every little tiny thing that they do and don't do, and things like that. Um, but it's kind of like looking at a building, a house that's being built. You know, you you can see more or less how the house is going to be, how big, where more or less the garage is, how the living room, house, the bedrooms. You have an idea. Even though it's not, the walls aren't put up and the decorations aren't put up, even though all that detail is not set up, you have an idea of what it is. Same thing. It's the outline, it's the frame of it. Okay. And number three, it provides the supreme law for the country. Okay, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. Now, what countries have a constitution? A ton of them. France, Kenya, India, Italy, Switzerland, the United States. We all have a constitution. Okay. Does every country have one? No. Some countries don't have one. That's why it's hard to know what that country's about. But the thing is, why some of these countries don't have constitution is because they have a regime change every so often. There might be one king, and then the military takes over and they overthrow him. So the military is in charge for 5 years. Well, then the freedom fighter, people who don't like what that general guy is doing, they'll take over, for another like 2, 3 years, and then somebody else is going to take over or get elected. So because there's so much change in leadership in that country, their direction changes so much. To have a constitution, it's kind of like it's not worth it in a sense because they're not going to stick to it. There's no guarantee that this new group taking over is going to abide to that constitution. They're going to say, oh, yeah, that's what we believe in. We're going to stick with that. No, they're going to change it up. All right. So now this next part might be a little bit more difficult, okay? Because it's the preamble to our Constitution. All right, a preamble, it sets forth the goals and purposes to be served by the government. So ours says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the liberty or the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States. Now, in class, I asked some students, is there any words that you guys don't know? And two of them really pop out. Um, One is tranquility. Tranquility basically means a peace or a calmness. Okay, so if you want to change that word from tranquility to peace, establish justice, ensure peace, do it that way. That helps you understand the preamble. And the other one is posterity. That basically means like your great great grandchildren, you know, your bloodline, your future, you know. Um, what I mean by your future, I mean like your children, 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 all that line. That's the posterity. Um, so again, so that part, the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, and so our future grandchildren and things like that. Okay. So hopefully those are the only two words you have trouble with. Oh, another one. When it says promote the general welfare, they don't mean welfare like how you know welfare. You know, this type of welfare, they mean the well-being of people, that everyone's okay. Okay, that's what that term welfare means. The well-being, that everyone's okay. Okay, that's another one. So, yeah. Now, I'm sure you're going to be asking, like, why is this important? Why are you breaking down these words? What's this got to do with this lesson? Because it goes to your next question. Question number one. Basically, you're going to break down the preamble. What does it mean in your words? Okay. So I'm going to go back one slide. What I would do is I would chunk it. Little part here, little part there. Do like 3 sentences, 3 sentences, 3 sentences, and then two. What does those 3 sentences mean? And then the next three. What does those 3 sentences mean? The next one, do the next three, and then those last two. Um, that should help you break this down. Again, put it in your own words. You should not be copying word for word what the preamble says, because again, it's right there. We can read it ourselves. Do not write down what I just said, because again, I said it. I want to know how do you break down this preamble and what does it mean? Okay. Um, Now, I did have a student ask me, well, is this one of those, there's no possible way you can get me wrong, you know? No, there is a way because it does say, this is not an opinion. These are not an opinion. This is what it says. You're just taking the words and breaking it down. So if you say like, oh, it says we can go to Disneyland. Where does it say going to Disneyland on there? Where? It says nothing about that. Okay, so be sure you take it, the chunk, and break it down. What does it mean in the common language? As if you're explaining it to your little brothers, sisters, mom, you know, whomever. Okay, so we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So the Constitution, it provides the supreme law of the land. Now, um, what does this mean with regards to the government's power? It basically serves as an extent and limits to the government's power, as well as our rights as citizens. So it basically means that the government, they say, oh, the Constitution says your powers go up to right about here. Okay. If they try to cross that line, they are violating your rights as a citizen. Okay. It says what the government can and can't do, and then as well as for us, what are our rights and what can't we do as citizens. Okay. So that's the extent of the power for the government. Basically, serves as an extent and limits them to a certain point of power. All right, so we're moving on. Three, two, one. All right, so here's the thing. In the Constitution, it does not say that we can or can't have political parties. Believe it or not, political parties were already formed before our country was started. You had groups like the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. They were already going at it. So the purpose of political parties is basically with people who share the same belief in what the government's role should be. They gather to protest or voice their approval or disapproval on government issues and laws. Okay, so like a great example going on right now is about the minimum wage, right? One side says if the minimum wage is raised, then the business will go under. They're going to go more towards machines, you know, instead of hiring people. That's going to ruin the economy because people are going to lose jobs and you know things like that. And then you got people on the other side who say, no, if we raise the minimum wage, then that means people are going to have money. Then they'll be able to pay their rent, buy food, and then have enough money to buy other things, you know. And when you buy other things, you know, stuff like I don't know, little, well, even something as a phone. Do you really need the highest, biggest phone? No, you don't. You could get a regular, you know, phone. You know, won't be all the have all the nice gizmos and the camera won't be as good, things like that. But it's still a phone, you know. But yet you pay for that, and that company then gives the money to their workers, and then those workers have money, and then they go off and buy things, you know, and that keeps the economy rolling. So you have two schools of thought on this one issue, and that's what political parties do. Okay, and that's where the issues arise. One group of people want things their way, but the other group may want something that totally contradicts it, total 180 of it, you know. So that's where the political problems come along. Question number is it? Number 7 says to write down 5 political parties. Let me move the camera so you can see all the these are not all the political parties that are in our country. These are just some of them. But you're going to write down 5 of them, right? There's like the Justice Party, the Constitution Party, the Socialist Party, the Independent, Libertarian, the Green Party, American Party, Tea Party, Whig Party. So you're going to write down at least 5 of those. Okay. So pause the video if you're still writing, but we're moving on in three, two, 1. So here's question number 2. Do you think political parties hurt our country getting things done? Again, if you've been watching the news, if you've followed stuff on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, things like that, you may see and hear how the political parties are with one another. So that would give you a better hint. Okay, so think about it. Why do you believe this? Explain yourself. Okay, but we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So here's the thing: special interest groups. The Constitution says that one of its main issues is to promote the general welfare. So again, what's good for everybody. The problem is there's these special interest groups that focus on particular groups, um, or people, or an issue, and the problems going on in our country. Um, Again, the thing is, the problem is that our founding fathers believed that the government should help all people instead of favoring one special group or people. Now, again, we as people tend to think, hey, you know what, some of these people need some help, things like that. So you don't mind them getting help. So a group like AARP, they are focused on helping the elderly, you know, making sure that, the voting machines that, that are being put in place instead of paper ballots, the writing is bigger for them to see because, older people, they lose their sight, things like that. That they have access to things that everyone else does. If you ever been to a restaurant, look at the menu. You see senior citizens discount. You go to hotel rooms, hotel places, they have senior discounts and things like that. Why? Because groups like AARP and other senior citizen groups, they make sure that these guys get things for them. Because older people, they tend to vote more than younger people. And that's what politicians want. They want those votes. So if the older people say, you know what, hey, this senator really helped me out, who do you think they're going to vote for? His rival? No, they're going to vote for him. So that's why there's a lot of stuff that is aimed for older people, you know, and that's what they want too. Businesses as well. They want the older people to be like, oh, telling their children, their grandchildren, oh, I went stayed at this one place. It was so nice and things like that. They want that spread the good word and things like that. So these groups help out old people, and it helps out businesses as well as the old people themselves. Now, on the flip side, there are some interest groups, some lobbyists who look after big corporations. When you hear an oil spill, lobbyists would be sent over, to Washington to kind of make sure that the senators and congressmen and stuff like that, that they don't punish the oil companies too bad, you know. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll take them out, and be like, hey, let me take you out for dinner, you know, take them out to dinner, things like that, show them a good time, and at the very end, be like, so here's the thing, la 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 la, about business, and then they write it off as a business meeting, you know. So the thing is that senator, they can't say, oh, he was being schmoozed. Well, they did mention business for 2 minutes, you know. Same thing with if they take them on trips, oh, they were checking this out, you know, they saw this. Well, these lobbyists will pay for the whole family to go out somewhere to like Hawaii or the Caribbean islands. I mean, they'd be like, well, we flew over where we drill, and they saw that everything was fine. They use that kind of stuff, to justify buying dinners and things like that. But one of the biggest ones they do is they put money to re-election campaigns. You know, that whole thing about the money in a suitcase, all that stuff. That's old school. That's not how it's done anymore. Because if a senator is only making like $200,000 a year, and he's living in a place that's $800,000, and they think same thing with cars and all that stuff. that's going to catch the attention of the IRS. So you have to remember, these guys are pretty smart on how they cover things up. So again, you got one group that really truly tries to help people, and you have this other group that just is focused on these one percenters, these people who have money and don't want uh, punishments, don't want their taxes raised and things like that. So here is your exit ticket question. Should special interest groups be limited in their influence on social issues? So again, instead of taking them out for dinner all the time, once a year. Take them on a trip, again, like once a year. Um, if they do something like put money into their reelection campaign, that's only like $5,000. Nothing too big, you know. Um, but again, this means not only the groups that are trying to protect the ultra rich or big powerful corporations, but also the ones that are trying to do things for the older people, people with disabilities, and things like that. So it would affect all of them. So what do you think? Should they be limited in their influence or not? So once you've written down your response, you are done for this lesson. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, we did not go really in depth on special interest groups or political parties because we're going to do more of that later on in the semester. Okay, so that's it. You guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys in class, all right?